Welcome back, everyone, to Context for Chaos, and this is part 3 of Meg Jones-Wall's 2023 interview. Enjoy. But if you don't want to read other people, that's perfectly fine, but it is hard to just read yourself all the time because you're just dealing with yourself. So that's also why your book is so great, because it has so many journal prompts. And that is such a, I mean, we all just want to know how to think about it. You know, it's like we need something to help us. You know, that's what college and master's programs are for, is to figure out how you see something, what your perspective is, because you're the one going off in the world and expressing it. So you got to know where you have it in yourself. So did you actually do these journal prompts for yourself, or did you come up with them so this is a personal thing?
A little bit of both. Yeah, I love writing journal prompts. So like, I think it's partly my personality. It's partly my writing style. It's partly just like who I am as a person. I'm a Gemini rising. I ask questions all day. And I'm a Scorpio sun, so I'm nosy as fuck. So like, I'm really just an investigator at heart. Like, I'm deeply curious as a person. I always want to know things. Like, I want to know everything about everything all the time. And so like, journal prompts for me are, even if I don't like grab my own journal and answer the whole thing myself, like just the process of crafting questions often unlocks other things for me. So it's like this kind of really interesting thing where like me writing the questions and encouraging other people to think of their own answers helps me. Just the crafting of the question alone, like, it actually stimulates a lot of deeper thought and investigation for me. So I have not done all of the journal prompts because there's so many.
Oh my God, they're great. I'm just like, it re-inspired me to go back down my own journey of it, with a different deck. I think I probably did it with the Rider-Waite because it was so long ago. I started doing it like 15 years ago. Yeah. But like, I love the Mother Peace deck.
It's so beautiful.
That's such a great deck.
It's such a gorgeous deck.
And it's circular, so it really breaks up your linear thinking, so it's awesome that you don't have a specific deck. So anybody can kind of take what deck they need right now, because that's how I'd ask people to look at this more than, what's the right and wrong way to do this. This is intuition, people. This is not A plus B equals X. Like, this is not algebra. This is not geometry. This is really needing to know how, like you said, sensorily feeling inside, how you're picking up things, what things mean to you.
Totally.
So I've heard you talk about something. I'm curious how this goes with tarot. You've spoken about cycles.
Yeah.
And that you're very interested in cycles, that you participate in your own cycles. Do you have cycles with tarot that you work with?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think thinking about cycles and like narratives and like story beats, to put it in like different language, has been really, really useful for me in a lot of different ways. I think that it kind of stemmed from this numerological perspective of like thinking about these 9, I use Pythagorean numerology. So it's like thinking about these 9 story beats, or these 9 points in a broader cycle, and like how one thing naturally eventually leads to the next thing. And so I think for me, thinking about where I am in a cycle or in a story or in a narrative can be a really anchoring and like comforting place, because I think that it becomes like right now, for example, we were talking before we started recording about like moving and apartments, and like the New York real estate scene is just one of the circles of hell. I swear to God, so like awful. It is the end of the world here. Really and like, it's just,
we're both in Brooklyn. Both of us are in Brooklyn.
We're both like looking at apartments, and it's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. But thinking about like, okay, I am in a hanged one state right now. I am out of control. I cannot do anything. I am waiting on other people to act. I am in this moment of surrender and in some ways sacrifice, of like not being able to control my own motion. But it does not mean that things are not happening. It just means I am not in control of the things that are happening. And for me, that is deeply comforting to be like, okay, I know where I am. I know, and that helps me give context and shape and form and like some clarity to where I have been. And it also gives me a way to crystallize some more shape around the kind of hope that I might be moving into, and like, okay, what can I maybe expect next, or what can I maybe start looking towards, or what can I maybe anticipate? Like, it just helps me kind of ground myself in a place. So even if I don't love the spot of the cycle that I'm in, I still have a better framework for thinking about what I'm going through in that moment. And I don't know, for me, it just settles something in me to be able to be like, okay, I'm just in a hanged one place. It sucks, but at least I have a name for it, versus just feeling this nebulous shittiness.
I love that because I'm not moving right now. I want to move, but it's the third ring of hell right now. Exactly, I can't. But the last time I had to move 6 years ago, that was my card that I anchored myself in. I was like, I know I am in the hanged man or hanged one or the hanged man. I know that I am in a space where I don't know what's going to happen. I'm suspended. I can't make any decisions. But I know that I have to eventually, but I don't want to move too quickly. I don't want to overstep. I don't want to go out of fate's timing. Right. And so it's like, I think that's a really great, I mean, it's not a comfortable place to be, like you said, but it's a really great manifesting place because a lot of times it's like, if you have a picture in your head, then you can't deviate from that picture. It's not saying that to go outside of what's possible, meaning like I can't afford, or maybe you can't afford like a $6,000 a month apartment, so you don't manifest that. We're gonna be in the hanged one forever.
Like not just gonna be homeless. Like that's actually not gonna happen. Yeah.
But if we're able to really say like, this is what I can afford, this is the kind of neighborhoods I want, this is the amount of bedrooms I want, this is the amount, and you can then use all of the elements, right? The wands of action, the swords of logistics, the cups of imagination, and the pentacles finally of materialization in order to hang out there because you're just gonna have to.
Just gonna have to.
I can't believe that you had the hanged one and I had the hanged one 6 years ago. That is
but it's so correct, right? Like that's the energy.
And it kept coming up too. Like every time I did a tarot reading, I was like, I know this is coming up. I know the hanged one.
Like, I don't even have to reach for my deck. I know that this is gonna happen.
It happened every time.
Sometimes it's just uncanny. The cards are so loud you can hear them before you even pull one, and you're like, fine, I'll just go get a drink. Like I'll just make a cup of tea and just sit here. Like, it's fine.
I will be wasted through this entire hanged one. That is how I am going to cope. I'll just go there for both of us.
The hanged one is a hangover. This is where we are. Like
I will be there for both of us. I would be outside. I was staying with my friend. She was kind enough to house me in between.
Oh, yeah.
So it was really a hanged one because I wasn't, I was in limbo.
Yeah. It's not your space. Like,
and you talk about, we're going to go into the cards with the numbers, but you talk about, like you said, Pythagorean numerology. The hanged one is 1 + 2 = 3, which is the Empress, right?
Yeah.
So I'm outside on her deck. I hadn't lived, I've lived in New York for, I think, 17, 18 years now. And it's been and I come from a city, but not like, I come from Louisville, Kentucky. So it's not like New York,
like
but
this. Yeah.
Right. But and we had a Central Park because our Cherokee Park was built by Olmsted, the same guy that did Central Park. So we had all of that.
Oh, that's so cool.
But I didn't I guess I just never thought about how healing nature is because I was out in nature when I was as a kid, and I didn't really think about it then. But I was at her place, and New York just takes it all from you. So then you really don't think about. There were years I couldn't even smell nature. I was like, what is this? So I'm there with her. I'm outside on her back porch, and I'm just like, not thinking about anything because I'm too overwhelmed. Yeah. And I'm just staring at this tree, like this massive tree in the back, just swaying. And I felt so calm and so peaceful. And that was that numerological connection for me. It's like, yeah, maybe you're in the hanged one place, but if you connect to something that's bigger than you, absolutely gorgeous, that just is here, as an ecosystem, you're a part of the ecosystem. You're not better, you're not worse, you're not the end all be all, and you're not the beginning. And you can just be here with this tree swaying. And I sat out there with a rosé for like 5 hours a day.
That's beautiful.
So your like numerological connections absolutely make sense. I love that I even feel like when I was reading it, you mainly go into numerology for the majors.
Yeah, it's mentioned in each of the minors, but I was like, I don't want to be repetitive. So like
it was perfect because you start with the majors. So we start with what, and we can work our way back to look at it. But it's so important if you really like those patterns, right? If you really like patterns like that, to get to know the numbers and in as many ways as you can. But one of the ways is Pythagorean numerology. So can we go through a couple of these cards that are that when you put them back together, like what the majors are with them? I think that would be really cool to look at. And
totally.
So I've got one already. So
yeah, everybody always has like one number or one thing where you're like, what? How does this work? This can't be right. Like, what are we doing here? What is this?
So the 2 of Pentacles goes back to the High Priestess now. So tell me how you see that correspondence. I mean, I can see like the two of Pentacles is I mean besides the Rider Waite,
Yeah.
it's being able to hold things in tandem without letting them drop.
Mm-hmm.
So there isn't an instinctual, intuitive quality about it. But what's your how do you relate? Tell me.
Yeah, so
me a wisdom.
Mary Kay, I will try. But so Mary Kay Greer uses this language that I really, really love for when it comes to numerology and like birth cards and I use language of like core archetypes versus like secondary archetypes. So what Mary Kay Greer talks about is seeing each number and the set of cards that correspond with that number as a constellation. And so it's less like every card points back to the priestess specifically and more that like every two is connected to all the other twos and forms a broader picture of reflections of like different facets of the number two as a whole. And you can do that for every card. But I also just think it's beautiful. Like constellation is so beautiful.
That's gorgeous. Would you make so she's saying the cards make up a constellation.
Yeah. So if you think about two as a constellation or the priestess constellation being all of the two cards, then that can be really useful when you're using numerology because then you're not trying to fit every two into the high priestess. You're thinking about, okay, if I know what two is, if I know that two is like giving ourselves grace and making choices and looking at a broader picture and trying to decide between two things and paying attention to dualism and balancing things and equilibrium and trusting our intuition and like all of these different facets. And there's so many more, but like all of these different facets of two and thinking about how every card reflects different aspects of two as a whole, then you can find these patterns, but it doesn't have to be like, how does the Two of Pentacles connect to the priestess? Does that make sense? Like you're
I love that actually. Yes.
Yeah.
Because
and it can make it a little more
flexible.
accessible.
Yeah. And you can, and that's the whole point of it is so that you can kind of fit in crevices and be, like the high beams, it can be whatever you need it to be. That's very interesting. So if we looked at, so in that respect, we would look at all of them together. We would look at the twos and the high priestess. Would you add justice in there?
Yeah. And judgment too. Yeah. All of
and
the twos.
Judgment. Okay.
Yeah. And I do like, not to get too in the weeds, but with court cards, I also have like correspondences for those because I know because court cards always fuck people up and I really wanted to include them because they're messy sometimes and they can be really challenging even for really experienced readers. So I put pages as 11. I put them in the two category as well.
I saw that. That was another one. I was like, all the pages are high priestess and justice and judgment technically.
Yeah.
So when I'm looking at that, because so if we're looking at all the pages, then let's make it a constellation.
Yeah.
How would that be? Like, what would you tell me as a brand new person to this constellation? How the energy kind of flows through them? Like, what would I? Yeah.
Yeah, so the way I see pages are, we often talk about them as like children or students or apprentices or people that are like getting started or seekers, like someone that is coming to a new journey or coming to an element in a new way. And so if I think about pages starting the journey with two, it's this really contemplative, observant, like, what do I want to do kind of energy and like looking at the possibilities that an element could hold and thinking about how do I want to use them. And there's not this sense of like restriction around rules, like, oh, I have to do one or the other that we might see with like the Two of Pentacles or like justice or judgment, even like when we're thinking about weighing two things together in like a really Two of Swords sort of way. Instead, it gets to be like, I could do anything. So what do I want to do first? And what can I do without restriction in a way that feels really authentic? Like, what kind of journey do I want to go on in exploring this element or this desire or this, need or whatever it is? And how can I let that be as reflective of who I am in this moment and who I want to become as possible? And so thinking about each page as like preparing for this journey and like starting to take those initial steps towards something, it gets to be this really open, like, what do I want to do kind of energy, less in a magician way, but more in a priestess way or in like a justice way of like a weighing your options and like thinking about what feels good for you versus being stuck in this rigid framework right off the bat and being like, okay, this is the path I have to follow, so I'm just going to follow it.
I love that.
I see two. I really like to think about the choice aspect of twos.
Yeah.
I find that really helpful. But twos
really are choices. They really are.
Twos are a lot of choices,
it's after using these, once you really get to know your deck and how you want to talk to it, it starts talking back to you.
Yeah, 100%.
And like every time a two comes up, I do reversals as well, so there's a different meaning with that. But it's more like when it's I say when it's upright. When it's upright, the choices are still there. They're still available to you. You can do this one or you can do that one. You're not going to drop one or the other. But another really cool thing, like you made me think of, is if we use that word choices and then we hop up, for all of the twos, in the minors, and then we hop up to the majors, we can say, what are the choices when we're looking at the high priestess, which is our instincts, our intuition, how we feel inside, who we naturally are, right? Because that's something that you had to deal with coming out of a very strict background, is who am I? Who am I in sexuality? Who am I in education? Who am I as storyteller? Who am I in all these different ways? And that is really a very high priestess DNA kind of experience. It's not as many. It almost takes away the choice, but you have to give into it. It's like that's like even psychedelics. Like you have to give into the experience. Otherwise, the choice is there, but the choice is yours.
Right. Versus just doing what you're told or what you feel like you have to do. Then you're not actually making a choice. So it's like, am I going to choose to stay not making a choice, or am I going to choose a different path that I am deciding for myself or that I'm designing for myself?
Exactly. Yeah. And to stop pushing down those instincts, pushing down that intuition. Like that's why you weren't supposed to dip into your intuition, because then you would ask.
Dangerous.
Right? Exactly. Then you become who you are, and they can't control. They don't know if they can control who you are. Maybe if that's your instinct, they can, but they don't know. So then when you go to justice, that's weighing the choice for yourself, right? It's an objective impression of it and saying, okay, well, let's do pros and cons. Like, okay, maybe these are my instincts, but let me write the pros and cons of this. And let's write where I've learned from it, where I've made mistakes from this. And like going back, and then judgment could be, but what do I feel called to? What's the greater aspiration of my life? What's the legacy I want to leave behind? Or where can I contribute to help other people? So that can also be the choices that we're going through. If you hop up, that's so fun. I've never done that before.
No, it's really fun because you can do that with, like, if you look at like each number as a whole and like choose a number that really resonates with you, then you can trace it through every card and start to see like, okay, what does this have to teach me about it? Like, and what does this card have to tell me about choices? And like how just thinking about the choice inherent in this part of the cycle or this part of the story propel the next card, or how does it what purpose does it serve, and like what function does this choice open up? And like I didn't say that very well, but like in making this choice in this moment, like what happens next, and like how does this set up the next thing? It really then connects back to that cycle idea.
It's so much fun too, because that's the thing. When you when you first start out and you feel bored and you quit, you're not any different than any of us. We're all bored. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, as above, so below, blessed be.